One of my favorite videos to do is the 10 headlines, where we hit information really quick. Some of these things you've heard, but we may have heard from one perspective. So let's jump into some of those things, and then some of these you may have not been aware of that you should be aware of, and hopefully you'll do more research on these topics. So let's jump into 10 headlines this morning as we prepare to go through a very strange week, as we've had a lot happen this past week, but that will impact you. And again, as we talk about prepping, living sustainable, a lot of these stories will help you make wise decisions as you move into this next week. Let's jump into it. Today's video starts right now. Welcome to the Max. Thank you so much for being here today. If you're new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe, ring the bell, give us a thumbs up. Our goal is to always help you have a common sense approach to wisdom and discernment as we maneuver through this crazy world that we live in. Our goal is to prep, homestead, and to live sustainable, and try to do it in spite of all the stuff that goes on. So let's jump into 10 headlines today that will hopefully help you make wise decisions as you come throughout this week. Number one, we've talked about it several times, but there are tons of different nations, and our Fed are buying gold. Now, gold is one of those things that I'm telling you, I buy a lot of. I try to buy physical gold at least once a month. It may not be an ounce, it may be a half ounce, it may be more than that. It just depends on what month it is and what's going on. But it is an investment I think that everybody should be making. Now, the reason that most people push against it is they say that it doesn't make enough money. Well, to be honest with you, it's made like over 50% growth over the last 5 to 6 years, which is huge since 2018. Why do you think so many countries are buying it? Well, to be honest with you, China's market and real estate situation is falling to pieces. Well, they're purchasing tons of gold, I think, to help their economy, because when it comes down to it, if all of a sudden everything starts sinking in China, that recession or that depression in China will affect the whole world. I think the way they look at it is they can buy commodities and they can buy precious metals. It will help hedge them against a major tumultuous market fall over in China. A lot of other countries are buying it, even your Fed. Again, why is the Fed buying gold if they can print money? Because they realize the value of gold. Think of ways that you can purchase gold. I have a link below of who I purchase gold from. Another way you could do it is you go in and co-op it together. If it costs $10,000 to buy 5 ounces of gold, maybe five or 10 people who wants to buy gold with you, you can all buy it together under one person, divvy it out, then you have now bought gold, and you're starting a good movement to hedging against inflation and also having a true asset. Number two, there's been a lot of talk of nuclear. We saw testing with North Korea. We saw testing with Russia. Both of those things should give you a cautious outlook on what's to come for this week and the next coming weeks. Russia saying that they're going to test and test and test. It could be just a bluff. It could be them playing a very good poker game. But I think it should make us think conscientious about what we're doing in Ukraine. If we're messing with a world power that has nuclear capabilities, and if you think Putin's absolutely crazy, then why do you want to poke the bear, I guess you could say? I think this is a big story because I think it can impact you. So have you thought about buying potassium iodine? Have you thought about buying respirators? Have you thought about building a bunker? I know that sounds crazy, and it's crazy that we're talking about this. But do you know in some cities, in some states, in some countries, especially not in America, they have bunkers built because of all the dangers of nuclear? Why has America not done the same thing? Why has America not given enough warning? Because we're almost living in another Cold War, and I'm scared that America is just acting like it won't ever happen. But more and more countries that don't like us are getting nuclear capabilities, and they're threatening it and testing it, and why we're not bringing more attention to it baffles me. Number three, there was a report this week, and again with the volatility of the world, a report said that we are way down on stockpile of munitions as we send so much to Ukraine, meaning we are needing more defense weapons to take care of ourselves. We are depleting our stockpiles to give to Ukraine. In a world that is so volatile, with another situation that just took off yesterday, we cannot allow our stockpiles to go low. Now, if you believe the military-industrial complex or not, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that we should not go without. And I think that the more we push our goods across the world, the more we give our jets and our tanks, and we deplete our own military capabilities, then the more that we're vulnerable. We have a weak leader with a weaker military because we're choosing to send all our stuff overseas, we're putting ourselves in a very precarious place. Now, I think this is just what the military wants and the defense contractors want, is they want more things done, more money spent. Well, if we would just learn to hold what we had and keep our stockpiles, then we wouldn't be in this precarious situation. So we are at an all-time low when it comes to surplus and stockpiles of military needs and defense. Why are we doing that? And why are we allowing it to happen? And why is our leadership not standing up and saying, why are we putting ourselves in a very vulnerable spot when the world is falling to pieces because we have a weak leader? Number 4, we are now building a border wall because we see the severity of the cities literally falling to pieces. Biden is relaxing 26 different policies basically to get this border wall built. It's amazing that all these Democrats who were against Trump doing it now support Biden doing it. Isn't that funny? Isn't it crazy how politics plays in it and how we just forget something so quickly when we had the opportunity to build a wall where we wouldn't have millions and millions and millions of people flooding into our country. Also see when Vivek went to the northern border where he just walked strictly across the Canadian border to America. What we don't realize is we are very vulnerable when it comes to our own borders. We worry so much about building other people's borders up and putting military places all across the world. All the while our own borders, southern and northern borders, are unprotected and they're not guarded, and that is putting us in a very, very vulnerable state. So we need a border wall, yes. We need to make sure that we are covering every aspect of it. I thought that was great that Vivek did that on the northern border. Just a few weeks we could have millions more people coming across our border because Mexico's not doing anything. They're not scared of America. America's not helping close their border, and they're not putting enough pressure on Central America and South America to stop this migration crisis. Weak leadership brings more problems, and we're seeing that with the Biden administration. Did you hear the Biden administration is making it tougher on the energy sector because of transformers? Transformers are hard to get, and that's what runs our power from our grid to each of these poles. That's what goes out when all of a sudden, a lightning strike hits or a storm comes through and your power goes out. Most of the time it's because of a transformer has blown. Well, the transformers are putting out some kind of new emissions that they don't like, and so therefore now they're starting to try to make more regulations on transformers. What that does is it's going to make a problem that we're already getting a lot of our grid supplies from China. It's going to make it even tougher to get that supply and brought in. Our grid is very vulnerable, and the more regulation we put on it, the more it's going to become vulnerable. So we have to be careful of that. What's amazing is Biden is wanting more regulations on things like this. However, he is making it harder for things to be used without the grid, meaning he wants more things put on the grid. So the more we put stuff on the grid, the more regulation we put on the grid, the more the grid becomes very vulnerable. And I believe we're going to look at a spot where we're going to see blackouts very common. We're going to see grid shutdowns very common. And the only person to blame is the left and Biden. This overregulation push and this climate agenda that's so false is literally causing us to be in a very, very bad state in America. Number 6, a very weird story, but did you see in Chicago where there was 1,000 birds, over 1,000 birds randomly crashed into a building and it killed every one of them? Animals have a different sense. Dogs can smell more. Dogs can sense more. Animals, like for instance, when we hunt, deer just have this way about understanding a different sense that they can see us and smell us way before we can see and smell them. Well, birds have the same thing. We deal with animals all the time, and so it amazes me how they almost have a sixth sense that God gives them. But don't you find it weird that all these birds just randomly crash into a side of a building? Thousands of birds. And they said it was kind of unusual because it dealt with weather. That's very strange. There's some strange things happening. And 1,000 birds running into a building, I find that very strange. This is not like random 1 or 2 flying into a window because they couldn't see the window. Thousands of birds that migrate, that run into a building just randomly and kills every one of them. Very strange. Number 7, this could be good or bad, but Biden's approval numbers have sank below 40%. Well, that's below regular Democratic support, which means it's going to make way for more third parties or be strong for Trump. Well, we've talked about this before. I don't think Trump's support with Democrats is going to get any stronger. I believe you're going to see RFK get stronger, which is going to ultimately hurt Democrats and Republicans. I'm all for 3 or 4 or 5 parties coming into it versus just a 2-party system. However, what I don't understand is RFK is coming in and they're allowing him to speak at like CPAC. It's amazing how much the conservative movement is pushing against its own conservatism. Makes no sense to me, especially when you have a candidate as weak as Biden that is running against Trump. So my thought is, why don't we coalesce behind whoever is leading the conservative party, quit supporting people who are not conservative, and make sure that we put our message out that we can secure the border, that we want to see peace across the world through strength, not what we've seen the last 3 or 4 years. So I don't understand why we're not taking advantage of the weakness of Biden's campaign and his administration and making Trump or conservatives look better. However, we're trying to bring up other third parties in the conservative movement to almost compete against our conservatism. Blows my mind. Remember, RFK is not a conservative. There are some things he has said that is libertarian, and I believe that Trump needs to pull him under his wing and try to get him alongside him, especially if he sees that this independent bid is not going to move anywhere. Trump needs to really pull him in and say, hey, I want you to be a part of my administration. I think that's a great move strategically. But I don't understand why conservatives are pushing against their own conservatism by supporting that and not bringing attention to the fact that Biden is a failed candidate. Blows my mind. Number 8, we talk about governments pushing against checks and balances. Why all of a sudden are we sending abortion pills out when we say that that's illegal? That came across that states can make their own decisions. However, nationally, our federal government, which is the Biden administration, is pushing out abortion pills. I thought that's unbelievable that we're still doing this, and this is a fight. If you as an individual want your liberties and y'all are in a state that has liberal policies and you want to have an abortion, I think that's absolutely wrong. I really do. As a Christian, as a conservative, I believe that it's a wrong approach. However, if we as a Supreme Court supports, overturning of Roe v. Wade and it makes it go back to the state levels, why is it right for the federal government to push pharmaceuticals for us to have to pay for? Remember, the federal government doesn't make money other than the money that it takes from the American people. So if the American people do not support abortion as a whole, no matter if you are in a liberal state or conservative state, it needs to be your states doing this, not the federal government. So it's amazing that our federal government is pushing and selling pharmaceuticals to its populace, even when there's some states that don't back it. And then on top of that, to charge the American people, to tax the American people to pay for it. Blows my mind. Such a fallen world that we live in. Number 9, it goes along with that too, is the Biden administration has forgiven $9 billion in student loans. It's amazing what people do to get votes. They're buying votes by buying off the student loans. If you signed up for a student loan and you chose to go to a 4-year college and all of a sudden you're not making enough money to pay for it, that's your own fault. You chose to go, you had that freedom to go. You chose to sign up for the student loan. It shouldn't be me paying for it. I paid for my college. Do I want my kids to go to college? If they feel like they need to go to college, absolutely. And if we can't pay for it, then it's not the taxpayer's job to pay for it. We do not live in a socialist society. So it's unfair that the American taxpayers are having to foot the bill for people who signed up for a student loan that all of a sudden is getting covered. Now it's amazing because, again, checks and balances, we said this was illegal and unlawful when he was trying to do student loan forgiveness last time. Well, because of all the little loopholes, it allowed him to already have money set aside to do this. Buying votes is a wrong approach, and building a socialist government to say, we can always help be your emergency crutch to take care of all the stuff that you messed up on, like abortion, like student loans. Say if you make the mistakes and all of a sudden you can't own up to them and you're not big enough to pay for that. You're adulting now, but you can't afford your loans. You can't afford the mistakes that you may have made. So we're going to send you abortion pills and charge the taxpayers. We're going to pay for your student loans and charge the taxpayers. That's a wrong approach. I believe we're just building a socialist government that no one, again, is talking about. The conservatives should be pushing hard on these things that the government is paying for, that we're having to fund when we didn't really want to fund them. I didn't sign up for that student loan. I didn't make that hard decision to have a one-night fun time with somebody, and all of a sudden now I need the government to pay for my abortion pills. I just think this is a wrong approach for America, and I think if we don't change this kind of mentality, we are definitely moving into a socialist government, and we're buying votes. Exactly what these people are doing. They're buying votes to say, you know what, we can give you as much money as you want to pay for all the crap that you've signed up for and you've done, and we'll make sure that the taxpayers pay for it. Number 10, as you saw yesterday, Israel being bombed, and I believe we're looking at another war in the Middle East. Sadly, it's not just Hamas. You see Iran, you see Hezbollah, you see all these different factions of people that are, again, pushing against Israel. Israel has never been the kind to step down. I believe you're going to see a tumultuous defense pushback. And the thing that scares me, again, about wars in the Middle East is they're never ending. We're already involved in something with Ukraine. We're already depleting our stockpiles. And here we are again sending billions to Israel. Now, Israel is an ally of ours. We should have already done that, and we should be taken care of. There shouldn't have been a breakdown of intelligence on the Israeli side or American side. However, it was. This is an actual ally that helps us, whereas we're sending hundreds of billions to Ukraine, to a country that's not truly been our ally for a long time, and is not part of NATO. So now we're moving into another war or another situation in the Middle East that's going to bring conflict, that's going to bring problems with oil, it's going to be problems with, again, the Jews and Muslims. And then on top of that, you have China that is still making major inroads in Taiwan. Do you not see this as the setup of a world war? Now, is it World War III? I don't know. That's not for me to decide. But what I am saying is this is what happens when you have weak leadership. This is what happens when you have a president who can't even make a sentence without babbling. This is what happens. The world is a fallen place. We know that. It is an evil place. And then when we don't have a true leader who is showing strength, I believe you're going to see dangers. And now you're seeing chaos and crisis across the world. And we are the problem. America should have never put this man in leadership. He is causing major problems. And I believe we're going to see more war, more conflict. And if we're not careful, we're going to put ourselves in several different wars when we have an economy failing, when our American people are struggling, when all of a sudden the border's not protected. We're worried about wars across the world. And that could be very dangerous. From China to Russia, now to Hamas. No matter what you believe, it's going to put us in a very precarious place. And that this week, all these things put together can cause some major problems. And as you as a prepper, you need to make sure you're taking care of your family, trying to live sustainable. And we're going into a tough season, I think, for America. The end of 2023, I think, is going to be volatile, and that's not counting an election year that's up and coming. So give me your thoughts. What do you think about these 10 headlines for the week? Some of these you probably already know, some of these you don't, but we need to find wisdom in each of these situations because it's either affecting your money, it's affecting your security, it's affecting your family, or it's affecting how you live day to day with the cost of the grid, the cost of all the things that you have to pay for. And this is really the ramifications of weak leadership in America. When we're not showing strength across the world, we're showing weakness across the world. It allows the bad guys to come out of the woodwork and do what they want. So I hope we'll build a strong leadership back. I hope that America could be the shining light. And when we become strong again, it allows people not to try to pick on their neighbors. Guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. It does help us stay in the algorithm, and our goal is to always share good information, and hopefully you gain something out of this video. If you're new to the channel, go down here, press subscribe. We're doing a monster giveaway in October. I can't wait to share it with you. Thank you again for watching. God bless. Happy homesteading, y'all.